Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Healthy Highlife Podcast. If you're joining me for the first time, my name is Malcolm, a strength and mobility coach passionate about health, fitness and wellness, as well as cannabis. If you've come here from the first or the second episode, thank you so much for coming back. I would really appreciate it if you hit the like and subscribe button to grow the channel so that we can share the positive, productive message around cannabis and how we can use it as a productive tool to improve our life rather than hinder it. My mission with this podcast is to bridge the gap and create a space for both those who may be struggling with the negative stereotypes of cannabis, as well as those who have come full circle and figured out how to become productive stoners, getting their shit done while still being able to smoke some fire. So before we dive into tonight's topic, I'd love to hear the flower of choice you've gone for. I've got the Bubblegum Grape by Loud Packs. Seems a really well-balanced strain for some creative highs and uplifting euphoria. So let's roll this up and dive into it. Whilst I'm getting this rolled up, we'll just go over the last episode where I covered a brief overview of the science behind munchies and how we can use it both to our advantage and how we can overcome it or pivot around it where necessary. We also tied in a little bit around the relationship of food and how you can improve that and how that plays as a massive part into this whole picture. Because remember, this is really about creating a healthy relationship around cannabis with mindful use and intention. And with that, we have the power to make conscious decisions and choices around how we use it, which unlocks the power within. As with anything, if we overdo it, we actually end up reaching a point of diminishing return. The same can be said for exercise, nutrition, sleep, drinking too much water, anything. Too much of anything isn't good. And when it comes to the health and fitness part of our life, we want to really make sure we do the work in order to improve our relationship around food, because food is really the foundation of it all. What goes in really determines what comes out, in other words. And ultimately, that plays a massive role in our recovery, which is where the real progress really happens. So if you're someone who's gone to the gym for ages and you've tried this diet and you've tried that program, but nothing ever seems to work, it's most likely because you're stuck in this trap of recovery rather than allowing your body to get to a state of adaptation, which is really where the magic happens, which is where the nutrition piece comes in. Because if you're not giving your body the building blocks in order to build with or recover with, it's constantly going to be treading water and stuck in this state of recovery rather than actually adapting into the direction that you're expecting to see. As I touched on in episode 2, it really starts with making sure you're nailing that daily protein target for various reasons, not only to pivot or to avoid overdoing it in a binge-like setting around munchies, but also to make sure you're supplying your body with the building blocks it needs in order to build that lean tissue. And the more lean tissue you build, the faster your metabolism. Faster the metabolism, the more work your body will do to maintain your composition without you having to try. Which brings us into today's topics of pre-workouts and recovery. You may push your body hard in training, but as I've mentioned, the question really is, how well can you recover? And the second question is, can cannabis actually support us before we start a workout? And tonight I'm going to break down a little bit about how it can enhance our warm-ups, improve our mind-muscle connection, and so on, can help support our muscle repair whilst reducing inflammation and promoting deep sleep. But we want to do this without falling into all those other habits that may surround cannabis that actually end up hurting our progress overall. Let's get into it. Can cannabis be useful as a pre-workout? In the first episode, I briefly touched on the ECS, the endocannabinoid system, how it's very closely tied to our immune regulation and so on. It regulates pain, enhances our focus, and our movement coordination. But just because we have an ECS in the body doesn't mean we have to constantly hammer its thresholds and overdo it all the time. In low doses, THC actually heightens focus and motivation, and the CBD aspect of the plant can actually reduce any of that pre-workout anxiety that a lot of people tend to struggle with, especially when they're new to the gym. You walk into the gym feeling quite intimidated because it's not your setting and you don't really identify as a gym person. I mean, I still don't really identify as a gym person. I never really was a gym person. I'm just someone who now just looks after their health for the long term. But yeah, low THC doses can really help with that. We briefly touched on terpenes in the last episode as well, but choosing strains that are rich in pinene or limonene, for example, they all enhance focus, have their energizing effects, and can be great for motivation. And we don't want to rely on motivation when it comes to working out, but it can be a good catalyst to get momentum. And one more to mention is beta-carotene. It has mild anti-inflammatory effects, but it doesn't tend to give that sedative effect along with it, which is perfect when it comes to working out, because you want to be able to keep going and work through some of the discomfort that comes with pushing through the hard stuff, but you also don't want to get sleepy and couch locked midway through your workout. As most of you are aware, there are many ways to ingest cannabis. And if you're not, because this podcast is not just for those who are seasoned enthusiasts, but also for those who are curious, maybe misguided, miseducated, and are looking for a neutral place to find some information that we can actually use for our greater good and overall health and longevity. Certain methods you could use to ingest before working out. Personally, I like to microdose it, just using a good old joint. You've got other methods such as oil tinctures. You've got vapes now, very popular. Just be careful about what's in them. Could use edibles, although I wouldn't really suggest using edibles. A little bit hard to microdose on that and quite unpredictable depending on the person, their metabolism and various other things. Whereas something like a joint or a vape or even tinctures, quite easy to titrate the dose and can really improve focus, reduce the distraction and enhance that mind-muscle connection, which bodes well to a deep intentional mobility session when you're priming up your body ready to go and lift some weights. And that microdosing is really the key, because if you overdo it, well, then you're just going to be super stoned as you go into your workout, which depending on the day or what you've got to do for the rest of the day, not always a bad thing. So when it comes to using cannabis as a pre-workout, making sure you choose the right strain and the right dose along with your preferred method really, really matters, and can take cannabis and turn it into a really powerful pre-workout ally. Now, like I've already mentioned, if you use too much, you may well lose that focus and motivation. So as with most things, less is more. So now you've managed to nail the pre-workout, you chose a great strain, kept you uplifted, kept you moving, and got you focused and quite internalized with your session. You're actually present, you actually felt what was going on, and you had a great session. So now how do you actually go and get progress from that? Well, like I opened up with, you have to nail the recovery piece, because that's ultimately where all the magic's going to happen. This is where the endocannabinoid system comes back in. Its role in pain modulation, inflammation control, and homeostasis really helps get us into that state of recovery. Once again, if we use it with the right intention and we're pairing it with the right habits and other modalities to enhance that recovery. I just want to stress that although this podcast is about weed and health, it's not about saying that weed is just a magic superpower. It has powerful properties, but only when used correctly with the right intention. And thanks to THC's mild analgesic effects, it helps reduce that pain perception, which means you can train harder and then ultimately deal with the discomfort that comes with it, known as DOMS, the delayed onset of muscle soreness. Along with that, the CBD helps with the anti-inflammatory and helps just bring down some of those receptors to, again, reduce some of those muscle soreness and whatnot, along with all the other effects of CBD that helps enhance sleep and cortisol, the like. Now, just like we mentioned the terpenes for strains that we're going to use as a pre-workout in order to keep us uplifted and motivated, there are also terpenes out there that are going to be best suited to things like recovery. Beta-carotene, again, one of those that works really well on both ends, reduces inflammation and binds to the CB2 receptors and helps reduce inflammation. Another one out there is linalool, found in plants like lavender, known for muscle relaxing and sedative properties. And another popular one, known as myrcene, helps with deep relaxation. So it's usually one of those terpenes that are really dominant in those indica heavy strains. So in a nutshell, using cannabis as a post-training tool in order to enhance relaxation, but then pairing it with other modalities such as mobility work and breath work, really then enhance and optimize your results when it comes to recovery. And if you're someone who's been spinning their wheels in the gym for the past few years, not seeing any progress in the right direction, pay attention to your recovery, get the various channels that lead into your recovery nailed, and watch your progress soar. For training and the whole recovery thing, there's been an overlying trend, which which has been less is more, because ultimately the more you use, the less you're going to feel. So we've covered a few ways in which we can use cannabis as a tool with the right intention to enhance our workouts. We've also gone through a very brief overview as to how we can enhance our recovery to elicit more progress. But what's the best way that we can use it as the right tool in order to get that recovery without overdoing it? So the overall message is less is more for many reasons. We really want to keep up a mindful dosage and avoid that mindless overuse, mainly because THC in high doses can really disrupt sleep cycles, and we can't argue with that. Even if it helps us fall asleep, it's blocking our REM sleep, which is also a crucial part of our recovery cycle. It does, however, increase other aspects of deep sleep, which has its benefits as well. But really, choosing flowers that have a well-balanced ratio between THC and CBD are going to be the types of strains that are going to avoid that grogginess as well as that long-term tolerance buildup, which brings us back to that less is more. Because if we overdo it and we push our thresholds through the roof, we're going to end up needing more just to feel the benefits of the plant. And the benefits of keeping our thresholds on the lower end mean that we only need to use a little bit to get that same feeling that we had when we were a newbie. So play with your dosage a little bit. I mentioned personally, I use 1.5 grams a day, but that's different for everyone depending on your needs and your reasons for use, etc. But I would always recommend starting with lower doses and tracking how that affects your recovery, as well as making sure you're aware of not falling into habitual overuse. We spoke briefly earlier about ways in which we could use it pre-workout, but how could we use it post-workout in order to elicit the best recovery response? Well, firstly, there's the obvious. We could spark up a joint or hit the vape pen. Benefits of this is we could just hit it 1, 2, 3, however many times we need, and it's pretty fast acting, but it's short in duration. So you know that within a matter of 30 to 60 minutes, maybe 2 hours, depending on the strength of your strain, you're going to be back to level, let's say. But this method may be better for acute pain or that immediate post-workout relaxation. However, on the other hand, we've got edibles, which, as I mentioned earlier, are more individual specific based on many reasons, and they have a much slower onset and can be longer lasting. So if you're looking for overnight recovery, using an edible before you go to bed can really help elicit that, because it's just as unpredictable in its length as it is in its onset. And that boils down to what you may have eaten that day, how much you've eaten, the composition in which you're carrying on your frame, your hydration levels, your activity levels, basically your lifestyle versus the next. So it's very individual specific and can be quite unpredictable. Hence, using it as the overnight option can be a great choice because you're just going to go and sleep anyway. We mentioned oils and tinctures earlier. Also, a very flexible method when it comes to titrating dosages, especially between CBD and THC. And getting popular as well is the topical creams. So you could just take these. I mean, I've got a THC muscle rub at home. Really good. You can just rub it on local muscle soreness or joint pain, and you can really feel how it starts to take effect and reduce some of that inflammation, some of that soreness. Again, this stuff is to be paired with other modalities. So along with using a topical cream for, let's say, a sore knee, you also need to be exploring the options of training that knee and making sure that it has the capacity to handle what you're asking of it. Just a side note, if you do have knee things going on, look towards your hips and your feet and ankles as the culprits as to why your knees are giving you issues. The knee is just the guy walking down the road that got pulled into a fight. He wasn't even part of the picture, but he just got pulled into it. The hips or the feet and the ankles are really the ones who are causing the fight. Look at it like that, and you might get to the bottom of your knee issues. Just a side note. And this is exactly where we can use cannabis as a tool. Let's say you do want to go and work on your mobility. Let's say you do have knee pain or back pain, shoulder pain, whatever it might be. Remember, the point in this podcast is to help set the intention that you pair with the plant in order to get the best out of it for you and your life. So this could be something like, okay, I'm going to hit the joint and I'm going to go and get deep into the internal workings of my knee in order to figure out what the issue is and ultimately fix it. I'd say that's a pretty good and productive way of using the plant. And let's not forget CBD. Everyone chases THC these days, but CBD is going to give us the same positive outcomes just without the psychoactive effects. And also, it's going to lessen the negative impact on our REM sleep, which is a crucial part of our recovery. So if we use CBD to our advantage here, we can actually use a higher CBD strain before bed in order to promote a more relaxed, deeper sleep with reduced cortisol levels, which is really what we're looking for when it comes to going to sleep. We want to down regulate into that parasympathetic state, away from fight or flight. And we also want to get that recovery that comes through the REM. So if we're moving away from THC before bed, we can actually get the best out of our sleep and still enjoy a nice joint at night. It's just not going to be heavy with THC. Again, the research is pretty clear that chronic high THC can disrupt the natural sleep architecture. And that's where tolerance breaks play a massive role, because cycling on and off of it can really be beneficial to re-regulating your natural rhythms. Just like we mentioned, some terpenes that are going to help with pre-workout and recovery. These will also help with your sleep. Cannabis can be used as a productive tool to enhance your workout, to improve focus, motivation, internal connection, provided you use it with the right intention and you don't overdo it. It can also be used as a tool for recovery, which ultimately is where the progress lies in your journey. So the better you get at recovering, the more progress you're going to find you make. But once again, not overdoing it is key, because we don't want to hinder one of the main pillars of recovery, which is sleep, and making sure we choose a higher CBD-based strain for sleep is going to ensure that we don't impact our REM, another crucial part of our sleep cycle. Once again, it's not the one and only tool, and paired with many other things like breath work, passive stretching, yoga, mindfulness techniques, mobility, and so on, we can also add supplements like magnesium or zinc to our evenings to help bring us further into that state of relaxation and sleep. But if you're someone who does rely on this stuff for sleep, I'd really recommend alternating between a higher CBD dominant strain and THC to maintain the effectiveness of it all and to not hinder your overall sleep quality. If you're still with me, I really appreciate it. Still getting used to this thing, but we'll figure it out and it will get smoother and smoother as we go. Just to go over some key takeaways before we finish up this joint right here. I'd just like to leave you with some actionable takeaways that you can go and apply and become the productive stoner that you know you can be. So the first thing being microdosing. Really, really look to microdose rather than just getting on sessions all the time. I love to get on a sesh just as much as the next person. But when it comes to leading a responsible and productive lifestyle, as well as enjoying this part of life, using techniques such as microdosing and switching in things like CBD can really help improve that relationship around cannabis and not allowing it to become a mindless thing. Look a little bit deeper into the strains that you're buying. Buy with the intention in which you're going to use them. If you're going to use it as a pre-workout, look into what that strain profile is and see if it pairs well with working out. Make sure it's not a strain that's going to couch lock you and send you to the fridge. As with many things, the key is always balance and avoiding the overuse, and choosing the right strain is always going to give you the conscious choice in order to get the most out of the plant. So once again, thank you so much for joining in. I'd love it if you could pop down in the comments below any experiences you have with training, working out, using weed, whether you struggle. Maybe you're just one of those people that are like, no way. Like, if I hit a joint, there's no way I'm going to go and work out. Or maybe you're like me. You enjoy using some of the plant and then you can really get some of the best connected workouts that you've ever had. Either way, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Please chuck it down there. And anything that you'd like me to cover in the future, or if you've got any ideas for anyone that I could try to get on here as a guest, that would be awesome. Because I'd love to get some experts on who could give us their insights and opinions as to how we could apply this to improve ourselves, because that's ultimately the point, is to get us elevated and healthy and productive, but we can also enjoy some of the good shit out there as well. So join me next time. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into the differences between flexibility, mobility, mind-body connection, and how we can use cannabis to help improve that kind of stuff. Until then, cheers. Thank you very much. Have a good one.